to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. And on today's episode, sorry, hold on a second. Let me mute that. Sorry, everybody. I forgot to silence my phone. All right, sorry about that. And on today's episode, we're diving deep into what it means to be a purpose-driven leader in today's fast-paced world with someone who's done it all. Peter Teuscher is not just a seasoned entrepreneur, a senior corporate executive. He's a transformational coach, workshop facilitator, and change maker who's worked across continents and industries. Whether he's leading high-stakes sales initiatives, developing talent, or coaching executives to uncover their next breakthrough, Peter brings a unique blend of curiosity, empathy, and strategic thinking to everything he touches. So let's get him on the stage. Welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Will. Thanks so much.
Oh, pleasure's mine. How are you two? Well, you're, like we was discussing off air, you're 5 hours ahead of me. So
exactly. And I'm glad I wasn't the one with the phone on this time.
Oh yeah, no, I forgot. It's the wife calling me, and she knows I usually do my show at this time. So yeah. I don't know. But okay. You've had a long career in corporate. What's one lesson that still sticks with you today?
I've had so many. I think, because happiness is such an important topic for me, I think recognizing your own sense of purpose in what you do, I think is the most fundamental thing. No matter, big or small, what level of a business you're at, or what you're trying to accomplish in life, knowing the why of what's driving you and your purpose, I think is kind of the most fundamental thing I've learned in all my years in trying to find something that's fulfilling and makes me happy at work.
What does positive change mean to you on a personal level?
Well, positive change, I think, how do we know what's positive? And it's usually guided by how we feel, right? So when we kind of trust that inner guidance system and get in alignment with our values, I think that always moves us in a positive direction. So, positivity is how do I add value and how do I find fulfillment?
How has travel shaped your approach to business and leadership? Because you've traveled all over the world.
Yeah, well, it's different culturally from country to country. I live in Germany at the moment. I'm originally from Canada, but I've worked from the U.S. to China, and it means different things culturally to different in different cultures. So in Asia, there's more hierarchy. There's more giving respect to someone because of their title or their authority, whereas in North America it's more entrepreneurial. In some cases the hierarchies are more flat, and so that's a little bit different. I think in the Western world, leadership isn't something that you can take for granted. You really have to earn people's trust and respect, and really connect with them on that level in order to really be empowered as a leader. So I think those are super important. Building trust is like the foundation. I don't think people will follow in a leader unless there's a real trust there.
Yeah. Can you recall a moment where, sorry, can you recall a moment where curiosity changed the course of your career?
Yeah, I think curiosity is kind of this constant in my life. I think it started when I had my own business. I started my own business in my 20s with my brother in Canada, and just the curiosity of do I have what it takes to be an entrepreneur, to build my own business. And then I think the biggest change I made, I left a successful business in Canada, left my friends, family, everything, to try something new, moved to Europe, and really that was the biggest shift. So that's when I went from being a small business owner to moving into the corporate world. And I don't think you make a move like that when you're actually pretty comfortable, unless you're super curious about what new challenges and new adventures can bring for you.
What's one of the biggest myths about sales that people still believe to this day?
Well, I guess it depends on if you've got experience with sales or not. But I think for people who are not in sales, and I know for myself, I used to think sales had to be this very you had to be very persuasive, and in some ways it almost seemed a bit slimy, a bit I'm trying to pull the wool over someone's eyes. And really, as I developed and became a leader in the sales area and gave sales coaching and sales training, I realized, it's far more about how can I be of service and how can I add value. So when you learn to explain to someone how a product you're selling or how the service you're delivering adds value to your life, to their lives, I think then you get to that win-win. And I think too many people think of the old used car salesman kind of cliche of what sales is about. And I think there's far more people who are really successful at sales because, for one, they believe in what they're selling, and they look for how that can add value to other people's lives.
I was actually released a show with a friend of mine recently, and one of the things we were discussing was how coaches and content creators learn how to create offers, because some of us content creators aren't salesmen, so we don't know where to start or even know where our value is as content creators and coaches and stuff like that. So that was a great discussion we had, and we was talking about what was like. One of the main things was people just didn't know their worth. They didn't know what to price their services at.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find a lot of people, especially when they're just getting into being entrepreneurs, working for themselves, and not really knowing their own value. I think that's one of the most difficult things, even for me when I first got into coaching. It was easy on a corporate level. When I had an agency that would book me, they set the price. But when it started to be time for me to pitch myself, that's a really hard step to make. And until you have some successes and recognize, oh, actually, I really do add value, I really do deliver something, and you can do that consistently, I think that's when you build the confidence to start to say, well, here's what I'm worth. This is how much it's going to deliver for your company, or these are the changes that it'll make for you, and therefore my time is worth X amount. And I think that's part of the learning curve. So I hear this from so many people, whether they're consulting or whether they're offering a service or they're a coach, in those early stages, and you will not be successful unless you get over that hump of being willing to charge. The thing is, a lot of people, and in the beginning, I would, because I wanted to get experience, I would do things for a low price or even offer it for free. And the thing I learned is, if it's not worth anything, like if it doesn't cost anything, it's not worth anything. And if you undervalue yourself, people won't take you seriously and won't sometimes won't get the full value of what you've got to give, because they've got this mental concept of, well, it's cheap, so the results, I'm not going to expect much in the terms of results, right? When people are paying, and that's not to say I think people should be charging these exorbitant prices in order to make themselves credible. I think you have to believe in the price that you're charging. So it's this balance between making sure that you're valuing yourself correctly at market value, but also making sure you believe that what you're offering is worth what you're charging.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. How do you balance strategy and intuition when coaching leaders?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of great models to use to help people develop a sense of strategy and develop the steps and the processes to get to their success. But they only kind of point you in a direction. And I think if you're too rigid in your approach and your strategy, that is going to, the same thing is not going to work for every situation. You have to be adaptable. And so that's when I think intuition comes in. And so it always depends on, when you're very experienced in a particular area or a particular field, those intuitive kind of instincts really, the impulses that really kick in quite easily. But when you're kind of going a little beyond your comfort zone and you're trying something new, you get a little unsure of those, those intuitions that you have. So I always encourage leaders to trust their gut, whether it's their intuitions about people or about situations. So and I think it's all about a good healthy sense of awareness. So if you've got an impulse or an intuition to pursue a certain strategy or a certain direction, just make sure that you're in the moment and you're aware and you're watching for the feedback that you might be off track, right? So I talk a lot about presence with people, because sometimes people get so stuck in their head that they don't listen to their gut, and they're so set on one way of doing things that it's probably not all wrong, but they need to make some adjustments and adapt to certain situations. So I think, having first of all, recognizing that whatever strategy you used on the last project might not work 100%, and then kind of being in the moment and being very self-aware and then listening to your gut. So that's the approach that I use. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What's something you had to unlearn from corporate world to become a better coach?
The thing that you're often expected to do as a leader in the corporate world is give direction and tell people what to do. And a lot of people will come to you for the answers. And I learned this also in a leadership role, that the more you give people the answers, the more they'll come to you and be less willing to try to find the answers themselves. So, in coaching, it's about asking the right questions. As soon as you start telling people what to do, you're a consultant. You're no longer a coach. And so I think moving from that, giving people direction and trying to give people the answers and the solutions, to helping people find the answers within them, I think was probably the biggest shift.
Yeah. What was one failure that ended up being a huge turning point for you in your career?
Actually, it was back in Canada. I like to try lots of different businesses, and I really believed in this one project, and to the point that, when you believe so strongly in something that you're not willing to admit it's gone off the rails.
Yeah.
That is that is the thing that I learned from that. Putting a lot of money into something that I ended up losing it all. For one, I learned that mistakes are really great tools for learning. So don't be afraid of making mistakes, because even though I lost a lot of money in that one project, I still recovered and I'm still doing great. And it can sometimes be very, make you very afraid to try and take risks again. But I think it's doing things in iterations. So always self-assessing and making sure that, listen, this is what I've set out, and how close am I to this goal, and how realistic is it, or what adjustments do I need to make? Again, it goes back to being too married to your strategy or your path forward, and not being willing to admit to yourself when you need to make adjustments and changes in your path. So I think that's what I really learned out of that.
And we actually shouldn't call them failures, because they're more like lessons learned, and you take them and just learn from it. And it's those that stay stuck in that and they on that failure, instead of taking that lesson and learning and moving on and picking themselves up and going, are the ones who stay stagnant. They don't grow, they don't move on. They're afraid after that one failure of, oh, I'm going to fail again. No, you got to keep going, because everyone fails. Everyone has failed in coach. Everyone has failed in different projects. It's how you pick yourself up and keep trying and keep trying, and eventually you'll find what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. I actually do a workshop with leaders, and it's something a friend of mine actually I kind of borrowed from him, but they call it failure night. And so basically, you get together with a group of people who are kind of willing to talk about. It's really easy to get successful people together to talk about their successes, but try getting those people who want to make a good impression on their peers to talk about their failures. But when you can get over that barrier and start talking about, I really screwed up here, but what I learned was this, and the outcome at the end wasn't what I wanted, but now I know going forward, these are the changes I'm going to make. And I think when you get once you get one or two people really willing to be vulnerable and share their story, all of a sudden everybody starts to open up and go, yeah, I had a similar situation. And that is like, from a night like that, where people share the things that they considered mistakes, but in the end were just these great learning experiences for them. I think that's such a valuable process to be part of.
Yeah. You've facilitated workshops globally. What's a moment that really moved you? Where was there a workshop where it was like, oh man, this is amazing?
Yeah, I did. Actually, there was one that I did in the U.S. that I in Alabama, which was a group of people, and we were working on it through a number of different different topics. And one of the things we were working on was how to overcome stress and burnout and that kind of thing. And so, I've been meditating for 25 years. And so I just kind of shared some really fundamental tools on, and we called the session leading yourself. And so just understanding your own stress levels and recognizing that, you can't control the outside world. What you can control is sort of in you. You can't, you can manage your stress levels by managing, the way your mental models, the thoughts that you have, and so on. And so when I got the feedback, people were like, wow, I never knew how liberating to know that, you don't have to believe every thought you have, and to know that everyone else has this inner narrator, this voice in their head that's negative and nagging and so on. And so it became very personal, and some of the stories that people shared out of it were really inspiring. So I think you can do a lot of this business stuff and talk about strategy and talk about everything from product development and or sales strategies and so on. But when you talk about how pressure and stress really gets to people, and how people share sort of the things that they're suffering through at work, that's really inspiring to have people open up and then talk about their stories and then give them the tools to overcome sort of those challenges. So I think that was some of the most inspiring work I've done.
For me, even had I listened to the voice in my head 5 years ago, I would have never launched my podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
It was just me, just who's gonna want to listen to me. No one's gonna want to talk to me. It was just me being negative and me not just I sound horrible, and any excuse I could make up, I would make up just not to record. And so finally one day I just said, you know what? Let me stop making excuses. I pressed record. I recorded probably a 5-7 minute episode with my nephew. Didn't have the setup I have now. It was a mic, a mixer, a phone, not even plugged into the mixer. I didn't even have the proper hookups. And that's how we started. And my nephew was like, no, we can't release that. I was like, no, we're going to release it. We're going to release it just like that. Because I want people to see where we started at to where we're at now, and the difference and the growth with everything. Like, had I continued with the negativity, I would have never grown to where I'm at. It, it's me conquering my fear and then wanting to learn more, wanting
Yeah.
to improve on what I'm doing, improving on my mic, improving on my skills, improving on editing, audio, video, and investing in myself, taking courses, investing in equipment. It was something like, okay, the more I did it, just the more confidence I gained.
Yeah, and it's so we look at these people who are really accomplished and great at what they do that we maybe admire or strive to be like, and it's important to remember, none of them were born with those abilities, right? They worked on it, right? And the thing is, when you see some of these really accomplished people or see these real high performers, you think that they don't have any of those concerns or self doubt, but imposter syndrome is most common in the high performers and the people who are super successful. They'll admit to me as a coach, if people knew what I was really like, they would not think so highly of me or whatever. And that's just the imposter syndrome talking, where they listen too much to the self-doubt and the negative voice in their head, and don't sort of put in perspective all the things they've accomplished. And so even when people come up against really difficult challenges where they think, oh, I don't know if I can make it through this one, and then we'll look back and go, well, what was the last real big challenge or problem that you had, and did you know how to fix it before you started working on it? And 9 out of 10 times they'll go, no, I had no idea how to overcome it, right? So it's through the process of facing your fears, facing your challenges, that you're going to grow and become more than you were yesterday. And so that's really all success is. I don't really believe in this competition between others. I'm just in competition with who I was yesterday. And so as long as I keep getting better, right? And so I love your story there, because it's overcoming that fear and resistance to go ahead and do it, and that voice that says you can't, and proving it wrong.
Yeah, and it was to me, it was something, because I was 44 years old. I didn't know my purpose in life. I didn't know what like. I have a good paying job, but I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know what. And so when I started doing the podcast and I started getting messages from people talking about, oh, I needed to hear that episode, or someone messaged me, oh, this episode was wonderful, thank you. It was those, and then when I was receiving them from personal friends of mine, like, yo, I heard this episode, because me and a friend, we did early on, did an episode, and he's a highly successful real estate broker in Brooklyn, and so one of our former classmates was hearing us talk, and we talked about growth and mindset and coaching and everything, and all the things we were working on, and everything we were doing to work on ourselves, and what the risks we take, and just stepping out of our comfort zones, and just taking that risk that we wouldn't have we just kept listening to all those voices. And that person said, listening to you guys, to people I grew up with, that I know personally, talk about what y'all were doing and everything, that just inspired me to, because she was on the fence of starting her own business, and listening to us, she's like, these are two guys I know personally. I grew up and hung out with them. I know who they are. They're doing it. Well, why can't I? Why can't
Yeah.
I take that faith? Why can I take that leap? And when I receive messages like that, that's like, oh man, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be doing this podcast. Supposed to be having these conversations to inspire others out there that might not have the resources to to get this type of information anywhere else. So being able to have these conversations and inspire other people to keep learning and growing, is, to me, it was like this feeling inside was like, oh man, I feel so good being able to provide something that is a value, that people are taking something from it.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's why I do what I do. I had a great paying job. I had a great position, high level in a publicly traded company, and um, I realized that I didn't aspire to be a CEO or so, at that level of business. I really wanted to help other people, um, and I think when I look at where I've come from, uh, this thought that if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? Because I don't see myself as overly special, or other than having got the information that helped me change my mindset, change my way of thinking, to help overcome my inner mental roadblocks. I think that was the shift that I made, and I was fortunate, to meet the right people to give me the right guidance and that sort of thing. And so that's what I want to be giving back to others. So that's great. That if you can inspire just one person like that, you've already made a huge accomplishment.
Yeah. So how do you help leaders embrace vulnerability without losing authority?
Well, I think we talked before about trust,
Mhm.
and there's a great model by Patrick Lencioni he talks about the five dysfunctions of a team, and the foundational piece where that the thing that causes people, for one, to lose respect, or not find that connection, or not feel that willingness to follow a leader, is trust. And it's the kind of trust. It's not the kind of trust that's, I trust you're going to be honest and not steal from the company, or show up on time for work. But it's the kind of trust where it's all about vulnerability. It's all about saying, I'm not sure about that, or hey, listen, I think I made a mistake, or I really need some help here, right? A lot of people aren't willing to be that vulnerable, because they don't have the trust that people are gonna, I might lose my job, or I won't get the promotion, and so on. So I encourage that kind of vulnerability in leaders all the time, to go. A lot of people who are new to leadership will go, well, I can't admit that I made a mistake, or I can't admit that I don't know, and so they'll make something up, and that will communicate to the people in their team that, okay, there's not, if he's not willing to show his weaknesses, then neither am I, right? So I think showing a level of vulnerability that facilitates trust is what's going to get you a lot of respect, and it's not going to undermine your authority. I mean, if you're coming in every day and going, oops, I screwed up again, oh, I have no clue about that, that's more of an incompetence problem than a than a vulnerability problem. So I think being, I've been told that one of the reasons I'm successful at sales and successful at leadership is because people find me authentic, right? And so to do that takes a level of vulnerability, but it creates such a level of trust, and I think that kind of thing is respected, at least through my experience, right? I don't think the people who are really hard line, and who are don't show any emotion, and are just very strict in the way they do things. I don't think that will get the most out of the people that you're trying to lead. I think you'll get a lot of respect if you show your human side along with your competency.
Yeah. That way, if you show your human side, people can relate with you, can relate to you.
Yes,
If
exactly.
you're able to show people like, hey, listen, I hurt, I go through things, I make mistakes, I'm not perfect, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. I think a great leader is someone who can acknowledge their mistakes
Yeah,
and face them
absolutely.
head on and be like, listen, yeah, I messed up, but I'm gonna hold myself accountable, and I'm gonna take full responsibility for my mess up. And I'm gonna take that lesson and learn from it, and grow, and show people, hey, listen, yeah, I'm not perfect. If you show me someone who is perfect, like everyone here makes mistakes, everyone here is not perfect. We but we work together and make it so that they can see, yes, I'm a coach, I teach, but I make mistakes. I want y'all to see that side of me. I want people to see that I'm not completely perfect, that I'm still learning and growing, and that shows people, hey, he's like me. He's a person, he's someone like, he's a person like me, who probably has the same wants and desires for, like, for the most part, most of the people I speak to, they want yeah, they want to be successful, yes, but the most part they want to be happy. They want their family to be healthy, and they just want to be able to enjoy their life. And so when you show that part to people, that I'm here to say, I want the same things. I'm working on towards the same goals as you are, just maybe in some different other lane.
Absolutely. And I do the same as a coach. Like I talk about what we're striving for, what's optimum, but I don't claim that I'm perfectly happy all the time, or that my communication is always perfect, or that all my relationships are flawless. That's not human, right? The difference is I have the tools and the awareness to help make the shifts and the changes, and that level of awareness is what I'm trying to pass on to people. But perfection is not the goal. It's every day making steps towards getting better. And so I'm on that journey just like everybody else. And I think you're absolutely right that a leader that can admit that, they're constantly, every day is a school day. Every day is a day for you to learn and grow. And so I think leaders who can admit that, they'll get a lot more respect and trust.
Definitely. What has entrepreneurship taught you that corporate life never could?
Well, I started more as an entrepreneur and then moved into the corporate world. So, but I think the thing where entrepreneurship helped me in the corporate world was not being afraid to make choices, not being afraid. Like I was used to having to hold myself accountable and take responsibility, and make decisions, and learning to trust my intuition and my gut, as we talked about earlier. And so I think that's the big difference. I see a lot of people at different levels of management who, well, we got to follow the process, even if they become very bureaucratic, and even though maybe something's time sensitive and we could miss an opportunity, they'd rather be safe, and rather than take some risks. I think taking calculated risks is something that you learn as an entrepreneur, and it's sadly, in the bigger the companies, the less that is present, and that's why you see less innovation and less kind of breaking the boundaries of in whatever industry you're in, of the status quo. So yeah, I think that's the finding that entrepreneurial spirit in yourself, and the willingness, like we said, to make mistakes, to push boundaries, to make choices and take responsibility for them. Those are the things that I learned.
Definitely. If your younger self could see you now, what do you think he'll be most surprised by?
How far I've come, I think, because there was, when I was think of myself in my teens or my early 20s, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I had a very limited idea of what was possible for me, and it was when I changed that mindset that all of that changed for me. And so the expectations that I had for myself as a young man, I've far and away exceeded them. So, but I think more than any kind of business success, the fact that I've become happy in my work, in my relationships, I've found a way to be successful and be happy in life. And I don't think I really believed that was possible back in those early days.
What's one overlooked skill that separates good leaders from great ones?
Well, we've already talked about trust.
Yeah.
But I think, the thing that makes, the fundamental thing that makes people successful is their ability to communicate. And so to be a great leader, you need to be a good communicator. And one of the fundamental pieces of communication that people forget is listening. So great leaders will let other people talk first, get feedback, um, and then they will share their opinion, or then they will give instructions and talk. So they can read the room, or they can assess, and they can get honest answers from people. So I'd say communication is far and away the most important skill, and within communication, having great listening skills, being able to let other people talk first. Sometimes leaders feel like I've met people in leadership roles who feel like, okay, I'm expected to be the one to talk. But if you give people the space to open up and share and talk first, and then kind of give direction, or then lead the momentum, I think that's what makes great leaders, in my view.
Can you kind of walk us through your personal coaching philosophy a little?
Sure. Well, fundamentally, I believe that everybody has more potential than they're living, and so in coaching, I start with the premise that people have the answers they're looking for within them. So whether it's people that I'm coaching on a personal level, or on a corporate level, up to top executives, they are they're usually coming for two things. They're either saying, look, here's where I want to achieve. How do I get it? So how do I get what I want? Or they're saying, I don't know what I want. How do I get some clarity? And so both of those answers are already within the person that I'm coaching. And it's my job just to ask the right questions. And so they're either questions that someone hasn't thought of, or they're questions that people aren't willing to ask themselves. So the coaching process is this uncovering of the knowledge we already have locked within us, and opening that up and being willing to look at it. So that's kind of the foundation of my coaching process. And I think the biggest roadblock that people face, well, is themselves, but usually it's the way they think and believe. So no matter how much work you've done on yourself or how successful you've become, you're going to have some beliefs in you that are hurdles that you still have to cross. And so, whatever challenge people are facing, I bet I can find a belief within them that's leading them to that outcome they don't want, or that challenge that they continue to face in life. So yeah, it's a combination of that, recognizing that the answers are within you, and knowing that the roadblocks you face are usually rooted in some kind of belief that you've developed.
So, because you work with clients all over the world, so when working with international clients, how do you account for cultural nuances?
Well, I just try to be really open. So I don't claim to understand, every culture. I know some things about some idiosyncrasies about different Asian cultures, or the German culture compared to the Canadian culture, which is a big one in communication. But I think just being curious about other people, um, and being open to the fact that for me, diversity, the most important thing about diversity is having different ways of looking at things, different ideas, opinions, different ways of expressing yourself. And so when you stay curious and you stay open, the cultural differences won't really have a big impact. It's when when you have different cultures coming together in a room together, then you become a bit of a mediator, and navigating that room and trying to keep everyone else open and curious and willing to communicate freely. I think that's what those are the biggest challenges with cultural differences. But for me, I love to travel. I love to get to know new cultures, whether it's languages, food, or traditions or rituals. I think my own love of that, I think, is what helps me through all of that.
What's one daily practice that helps you keep you grounded in your purpose?
Well, I've been meditating for around 25 years, and I think fundamentally that has changed my life. But it's also something that keeps me on track every day. I mean, I have a morning ritual anyway, and it's usually a combination of, well, it's always a combination of some form of meditation and some form of exercise or movement. And so I think when you start the day by grounding yourself, getting some clarity through meditation, and then that will make your purpose for the day very clear. And I have daily rituals and I have like annual rituals. So I'll create a vision for the year ahead and get really clear about what I want to accomplish this year, and then I try to live that in every day. So I'll start my day with a meditation. That's the one thing that I do every day, and I finish every day with some reflection and gratitude. And that, I think, keeps it all in perspective, keeps me grounded, and that is a huge part of what I think has made me successful.
How do you? My next question is, how do you define success at this point in your life?
Yeah, it's not been about the making more money or any of those kind of any accolades. For me, it's continuing to be continuing to grow and learn, because I think the more you learn, and the more you know, the more you realize that there is still to learn, and so I want to continue to be on that learning journey through life. So I think that's the and again, as I said before, if I'm better than who I was yesterday, I'm it's a success. And so that's kind of what defines it for me. I've asked a lot of people how they define success, and the one answer that stuck with me was so simple. And that person said to me, happiness. If I'm happy on a regular basis, then I'm successful. And so happiness is something everybody defines for themselves. But I'm definitely happy in the work that I do and the relationships I have and the life that I have. But it all starts from within me. And so yeah, and I don't think I would be happy and fulfilled if I wasn't continuing to grow and change and evolve.
What message do you hope to leave behind for the next generation of change makers?
I think the most important thing, regardless of what you're trying to do, is first of all, try and be the best that you can, and then pass that on to other people. That's what I've been doing, and I've been for years been giving the example of when you're on the plane, and they do the safety instructions. In the case of loss of cabin pressure, first put the mask on yourself, first, yeah, and then help those people around you. And I think it's really hard to support other people in their success and happiness if you haven't found success and happiness on your own terms. And so really, that's, I'd say, find your own potential and continue to pursue that. And then once you feel comfortable there, start giving back and start helping others do the same. I think that's the thing that I would encourage others to do, and that's what inspires me to keep working at what I do.
Awesome. This has been a great conversation. But we've come to the part of the show where you get the solo screen and you get to plug away and let everybody find you, check you out, check your website, everything.
Sure, absolutely. You can find me at peterteuscher.com, and the last name is spelled Teuscher. I write a weekly blog to share sort of a wide variety of topics to help people progress and create more awareness. I've also written a book called Rethinking Happiness. You can find a link to that on my website as well. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out and drop me a message there. Or if you want to book a session with me, that you can do that at my website as well. So yeah, I look forward to hearing from people. And Will, thanks so much for giving me a platform to share my ideas.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, man. It was great having you on. I've got to learn some stuff and have a great conversation. To me, I enjoy, honestly, sometimes I kind of feel selfish. Like, I enjoy these conversations, and when I go back and listen to them again, and I learn in the process, so I enjoy it. But at the same time, I'm also sharing it on my platforms, so there's not really nothing selfish about what I'm doing. But I just have a great time having these conversations.
Yeah, I started doing these podcasts last year because I thought it would be a good way to promote my book. But after the second podcast, I realized I really enjoy doing, having these conversations, and everybody I talk to brings a little bit something else out of me.
Yeah.
And so I've probably done 30, 40, maybe even 50 of these now. And I really enjoy every conversation. And then you get the feedback and people talk about how, something you said there really, it really inspired me. And then I'm like, oh, that just keeps me going. That really gets me excited. So yeah. So I hope we have the same effect with our conversation, and everyone is great for me as well.
Thank you for being such a great guest. But don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show, and we'll chat a little bit off there. But thank you so much for being such a great guest.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Another episode is in the books. I greatly appreciate everybody who's tuned in live. If you catch a replay, please. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell. As always, big shout out to my real Wize fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Big shout out to the boss lady. Love you and appreciate everything you do. And as always, big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. Your boy Wize does it. Peace out.